Trump is claiming victory for an auto industry boom that doesn't actually exist. While President Trump frequently boasts about new car factories sprouting across America, the reality on the ground tells a completely different story, one that exposes the gap between his grand promises and what's actually happening in manufacturing. At a White House event earlier this month, Trump declared that car factories are coming back to America like never before, claiming companies from China, Mexico, and Europe are rushing to build new plants to produce American-made vehicles for global markets.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam.
These bold declarations follow a familiar pattern of Trump making sweeping claims about American manufacturing success that sound impressive but lack substance. But here's the problem. There's virtually no evidence of this supposed construction binge of new U.S. car factories. Instead, what we're seeing is something far more tactical and far less impressive than Trump's rhetoric suggests. Auto companies are simply making moves at existing plants to adapt to Trump's twin obsessions: tariffs and his hostility toward electric vehicles. The numbers don't lie, and they're devastating for Trump's narrative. Industry experts are calling out these claims directly. Sam Fiorani, vice president at research firm Auto Forecast Solutions, put it bluntly: "We're seeing underutilized plants being filled with products that were previously imported. There is no boom in new builds. This isn't just one expert's opinion, it's a pattern that industry analysts are seeing across the board. Take Nissan, for example. The company has announced plans to make more Rogue SUVs and other vehicles at its plants in Tennessee and Mississippi. But this isn't new construction. It's about reducing imports from Japan to sidestep Trump's 15% tariffs on Japanese vehicles. It's a defensive move, not the aggressive expansion Trump is claiming credit for. Even more revealing is what's happening with electric vehicles. Many car companies are actually pulling back from EV commitments they made earlier this decade, pivoting instead to gasoline-powered vehicles. Much of the capital investment that companies have been touting in recent months amounts to an unwinding of EV projects that they had announced during the Biden administration. General Motors provides a perfect example of this reversal. In June, GM said it would retool a factory in suburban Detroit to build gas-powered pickup trucks and the Cadillac Escalade SUV. But here's the kicker. This move partially reverses a multi-billion-dollar plan announced in 2022 to make that same factory GM's hub of EV truck production. So companies aren't building new, they're going backward on clean energy commitments. The real story of auto industry investment tells a tale that Trump definitely doesn't want you to hear. According to figures compiled by consultancy AlixPartners, the industry's massive bet on EVs that began late in the past decade drove a sharp increase in factory spending during the Biden administration. The company tracked capital investments by traditional Detroit automakers GM, Ford, and Chrysler parent Stellantis, as well as EV-only players like Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid. The results are striking. On average, these companies spent about $21 billion annually from 2017 through 2020, the exact period of Trump's first term. But during the next 4 years, with Biden in office, their spending averaged about $38 billion per year, most of it related to EV and battery production. That's nearly double the investment level under Trump. The Biden administration's policies, particularly the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, provided federal incentives that genuinely redoubled the U.S. manufacturing base. According to Atlas Public Policy, more than half of the $208.8 billion in investments they tracked was announced since Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. About three-quarters of that investment was under construction or operational by October 2024. Nick Nigro, Atlas's founder, explained it clearly. It's clear that this is part of an ongoing multi-year trend upwards. The Treasury Department data backs this up. Overall manufacturing construction spending, adjusted for inflation, has doubled since the end of 2021. Trump's White House is trying to downplay these Biden-era achievements, pointing to a Financial Times analysis that found roughly 40% of investments funded by the Inflation Reduction Act have faced delays. But even with some delays, the scale of investment under Biden dwarfs what happened during Trump's first term. Industry experts are also pointing out the premature nature of Trump's victory lap. Dimitri Anastakis, a University of Toronto business history professor and author of a 2024 book on the North American auto industry, noted that plants are planned years in advance. It's simply too early for Trump to take credit for plant expansion given his short time in office. The Canadian auto industry is pushing back hard against Trump's claims. David Adams, president of Global Automakers of Canada, disputed Trump's assertions that automakers are leaving Canada for U.S. plants, saying jobs are holding steady. The notion that everybody is vacating Canada to produce in the U.S. doesn't jibe with reality on the ground, Adams said. He acknowledged that Trump's aggressive tariffs could eventually reshape North American auto production, but added, "We're not there yet." Even the timeline for new auto plant construction exposes the weakness in Trump's claims. According to industry experts, the kind of large, multi-billion-dollar assembly plants that Trump wants automakers to build take years to construct. Permitting a loan for a new plant can take 6 to 12 months. It can take another 12 to 18 months to build the facility, followed by another year or more in tooling and ramping up production. Doug Betts, president of J.D. Power's automotive division, explained the complexity. All of those things have to fall in place. It's a very, very complicated process. The fastest way to increase U.S. production is to use existing facilities. Exactly what companies like Nissan are doing, and exactly what contradicts Trump's narrative of a construction boom. What's particularly damaging to Trump's credibility is how his own policies are actually working against the kind of genuine industrial growth that happened under Biden. The EV sector, which saw massive investment and job creation under Biden's policies, is now facing headwinds from Trump's anti-EV stance. According to the Environmental Defense Fund, U.S. investments in EV manufacturing reached $199 billion, with 63% of that coming since the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. That investment brought 201,900 EV-related U.S. jobs, with 931,000 more jobs for the broader economy. Trump's plan to dismantle Biden's EV-focused policies threatens this progress, particularly in red states that have benefited most from the manufacturing push. As EDF pointed out, 84% of the announced investment has been made in 10 states, including Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Nevada, many of which are Trump strongholds. The global context makes Trump's claims even more problematic. China made significant gains in the auto industry, especially in the EV sector, during Trump's first presidency. Meanwhile, the Biden administration acted to catch up with an EDF analysis, finding that U.S. EV manufacturing investments are outpacing those made in China from 2021 to the present. Trump's tariff strategy, while generating headlines, isn't producing the new construction he's promising. Instead, it's forcing companies into defensive moves, retooling existing facilities to avoid tariffs rather than building new capacity. This tactical maneuvering might help companies navigate Trump's trade policies, but it's a far cry from the manufacturing renaissance he's claiming. The broader economic data undermines Trump's narrative as well. While U.S. vehicle production has ticked higher by about 4% this year, recent figures are tracking below the average of the past decade, according to Federal Reserve data. This hardly suggests the unprecedented boom Trump is describing. Industry trade groups are also expressing concern about Trump's approach. 6 of the top policy groups representing the U.S. automotive industry recently joined forces to lobby the Trump administration against implementing upcoming tariffs on auto parts, warning about the financial fallout that would result from automakers paying the tariffs and passing higher prices on to consumers. What we're witnessing is a classic Trump pattern, taking credit for trends that began under his predecessor while implementing policies that actually undermine long-term industrial growth. The real auto industry investment boom happened under Biden, driven by forward-looking policies on clean energy and manufacturing incentives. Trump's approach of tariffs and hostility to EVs is forcing companies into reactive, defensive moves rather than the bold new construction he's claiming. The evidence is overwhelming. Trump's auto factory boom is largely a fiction. While he talks about unprecedented construction, the reality is tactical retooling at existing plants to avoid his tariffs. While he claims credit for bringing jobs back, the data shows the real investment surge happened under Biden's policies. While he promises a manufacturing renaissance, his anti-EV stance threatens to undermine the sector that has seen the most dramatic growth in recent years. Industry experts, international partners, and economic data all point to the same conclusion. Trump's auto industry claims are more about political theater than economic reality. The supposed construction boom exists primarily in Trump's rhetoric, while the actual hard work of rebuilding American manufacturing happened under policies he's now working to dismantle.
Things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years, we're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close. And I want to thank Bibi for really getting in there and doing a job. We've worked well together, as we have with many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East, and let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations.
Just as Trump has made grandiose claims in other areas, his auto industry pronouncements follow the same pattern of exaggeration and misrepresentation. This pattern of false claims about manufacturing success, contradicted by industry data and expert analysis, raises serious questions about Trump's credibility on economic policy.
You are the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And Mr. President, you and I both know it's not even close. While you focus at home on making America great again, your leadership abroad is changing the world for the better, ending wars and advancing peace. I believe that today we're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East. And I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. We would not have achieved this turning point without the courage and sacrifice of our incredibly brave soldiers. They fight like lions to defend the people of Israel, and they serve on the front line in the war between civilization and barbarism. Mr. President, when our two countries stand shoulder to shoulder, we achieve the impossible. Just a few months ago, in Operation Rising Lion and Operation Midnight Hammer, we struck a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. Your bold decision to send those B-2s made the region safer.
When the gap between political promises and industrial reality is this wide, American workers and consumers deserve to know the truth about what's really happening in the auto industry and what isn't.